and welcome to Family Matters here on Adventist Radio London, and I'm Barbara Lawrence. Today we're going to explore issues to do with intercultural marriage, and we hope that you will get involved in the conversation. And I'm happy to say that we have two millennial hosts, and they are Ruth and Brian Maxwell. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
We've also got Pastor Lawrence with us today. But before we discuss our topic, what I'd like us to do is pray. Dear Father, thank you for allowing us once again to come together on Adventist Radio London to discuss very important topics that affect our families in numerous ways. As we discuss and deliberate, please help us to think about how we can be inspired, informed, educating in the best interest of our families, because we know that family matters. Amen. Right, over to you. I'm not going to say much now. I'm going to leave it all to you.
Yes, as Barbara said, we're going to be looking at a number of topics over the next few months. And maybe, Ruth, you can tell us the three that we're going to be looking at today.
Right, well, today we've got three topics. First of all, we're going to be looking at the purpose of marriage. And then a big one that I think is a big one is the whole thing about relatives and responsibilities within a family and protocols for family gatherings and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to be having a quick small look at that, and then also we're going to be having a look at finances. So, and those are just the first three topics. We have got more for the next show, but we're just going to look at these three today.
Wow, big topics. Big topics.
Yes,
big.
Wow.
And what we're looking to do is just to give a brief synopsis of what we're going to be covering in detail over the next few months.
Lovely.
So, like I said, the first area we look at is the purpose of marriage. Is there a point to being married? Why do people get married? Is it just for fun? Is it just for having kids? What is the purpose of marriage?
All of the above. All of You're joking. Okay, well,
So, from your perspective, Pastor Lawrence, what were before you came into marriage, what did you think of it? When you were going into it, what was the mindset, or from your cultural perspective?
Well, thank you, Brian. To be honest with you, I had no idea. Day one, I had no idea when I got into it. All I knew was sharing. And then I didn't think much about cultural differences. I think what was more permanent in my mind was the fact that I was a Seventh-day Adventist. I saw my marriage as in the context of being an Adventist. And then later on, I realized that cultural differences had an impact, tremendous impact on it.
Yes.
And then was when I became conscious and began to look at the differences and work at it to enhance the relationship that I had. Okay,
we'll probably get into this in more detail, but it sounds like you had to be intentional.
Yes, I had to. But to be honest with you, when I say to you I had no idea, I was not focusing on cultural differences.
Okay.
I didn't think much about it.
Yeah.
What I saw was what I had known from the Bible, what the Bible says about marriage. I didn't know the impact that culture will have on it until later on.
Yeah.
And I was conscious of it then, and I started to put things in perspective and work on those things.
I don't know, Sister Barbara, when you were growing up, they say that little girls plan their marriage from the age of 4. So what kind of person did you think you might marry?
You know what, to be honest with you, I never thought of marriage as a child per se.
Okay.
I think I started becoming aware of being married or getting married in my late 20s, because I was always known as a career person.
All right.
So working, having a career, having the car, having the house, that was me. It wasn't about having a relationship with anyone. And then my friends around me were the same. We were like-minded. We weren't into relationships per se. We were happy to get together on a Saturday evening, go into town, go into London, have fun, get an ice cream, watch a movie, go around town having fun on a Saturday evening. And it was a mixed bunch. It was both boys and girls together. And that was us. That was our fun. And me thinking about the big white wedding, the princess dress, never came into my mind whatsoever. When I became my early 30s, a few of my friends started to get married, and I thought, oh, okay, maybe there's something for me. I need to start thinking about it now. And I didn't really, because I didn't really see anyone that I really fancied, if that's the right word.
Did you feel pressure to be married?
I felt pressured, obviously, because I was, touching early 30s. I did feel pressured. I had a couple of relationships and they didn't work out for whatever reason. Not my fault, I hasten to add.
Yeah, let's just put that in there.
Yeah, not my fault. They didn't work out. And then one day when I was, 36 maybe, I saw my husband. And that was it. And then the
was
pressure.
It like a glow? Was it light, angelic voices?
No, actually, it's quite boring. Actually, what happened was he was studying ministry, and he was asked to do a campaign at my local church.
Okay.
And with the then president at the time, and we lived in the same area, so I used to take him home in the evenings.
Wow.
It was just a friendship, really. I used to take him home, so I was his ride home.
Right.
And the ride home was via another lady. She said, "Oh, you live in the same direction, take him home." And I say, but I did anyway.
So
and that's how it built up. I was set up a little bit, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's how our friendship grew.
Yeah.
It was pure friendship. Didn't fancy him at all.
Wow.
He might have another story to that, but he's coughing. Look, he's coughing. He might have a story to that. But yeah, I never assumed that I would get married, because a lot of my friends are still not married today. So I never made that assumption.
I don't know. Did you want to share about our experience, Ruth? When you first met, what did you think?
Well, when I first met you, I didn't think you spoke, really, or even smiled. I was like, who is this guy? Just mysterious, man, and we didn't really know much about him because he was very, very closed, You really had to interrogate. And even when you went down the interrogation route, you didn't get much.
It took years of training to get to that stage.
Well, So, I mean, and I didn't, a bit like you, I didn't fancy him.
No.
It's like, okay, this guy's intriguing, and it got to a point, there was one, apparently everyone else saw it, I didn't see it. I didn't see what was going on. Apparently everyone else was like, oh yeah, we can see what's going on. I didn't see anything. And got to one point, I remember one Sabbath, and we were doing some youth activity or whatever, we were in the youth hall, and I was doing something, and I sat down next to him, a bit of light banter, and he just turned around to me and he said, you just need to admit that you fancy me.
Oh no!
And I was like, who does
She was
think
absolutely
he is?
livid.
Oh my gosh, this guy is just full of himself. I was so just annoyed and angry, and literally for the whole day, and then the day after, and the day after. I was thinking, but why is this bothering me so much? Why am I even spending so much time getting
Thinking
annoyed about
it.
this? And I was like, okay, maybe, but I'm not going to, maybe. And, and then I kind of opened my mind to the possibility that maybe I did, which I did.
Yeah,
I did, but,
obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my experience with Brian when I first met him.
Oh.
I mean, we're looking at the purpose of marriage. So I guess from my perspective, marriage was for fun, physical intimacy fun. It was also for having kids. It was for life companionship. And as growing up, you date and you see different people. But and it's funny. And I always say to Ruth, I'm only attracted to beautiful women. So the people that I dated were attractive, but it was only, I didn't realize how deep I was until you date all these pretty girls and you think, well, actually, is this who I want to hang around with for the rest of my life? And just say no. And I say no to myself. And what attracted me to Ruth was, I think I was in a good place spiritually, and I decided in my life that God had to be first, and I had to make that a big part of my life. And so when I saw Ruth, obviously I was in the church, and the people that I dated were all Adventists, but there wasn't that connection, because I don't think we're at the same level in terms of what we wanted to do in terms of God. But when I saw Ruth, she was singing. It was at some youth event, and she was singing. And I've shared this before in other forums, and I was just watching all the singers, and I just went through the list of the ladies. They're like fake, 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 fake,
real.
Yeah. And then I looked at it and said, well, maybe I need to get to know that girl. And I knew her name was Ruth, but I didn't know which church she went to. But I sort of, then I missed my window, because when I tried to talk to her, she totally blanked me.
I had no idea. I was like, hey.
She totally blanked me, and she wouldn't engage. I was like, all right, well, nice girl, missed opportunity. And then when I went to our local church in Milton Keynes, they're like, oh, that's that girl from that day. But I kept it on the down low, because I'd been shot down. Yeah. But like I said, my intention was always like, well, marriage has got to be more than just for physical intimacy. But that's because at that time I'd spent so much time working in the church and doing different things. Growing up, it was just for fun.
Yeah.
But by the time I met Ruth, and having had some relationships that didn't necessarily meet all of my needs, I decided then I needed something different. I mean, we talk about the purpose of marriage, but should Pastor Lawrence, should marriage have a purpose, really?
Yes,
Is there a point to it?
Thank you, Brian. We have it stated clearly in the scriptures, Genesis 1:26-27. We have word from God, directly from God, that He made human beings in His image, and so He made human beings to reflect Him. So what that says to us is that He wants us to not only reflect Him, but to try to reflect Him.
Yeah.
So the reason why He made human beings was, number one, to reflect Him, and so that when we form relationships, the purpose of one of the purposes of relationship is to reflect who God is. So when we form our relationship in terms of marriage, God wants the purpose of that marriage, first and foremost, is to reflect God, to reflect Him, in other words, to treat one another the way God would treat us.
Does that, excuse me for interjection, does that necessarily mean that you have to have a relationship with God before? Because how can you reflect God if you don't really know Him? Or do you get to know God within your marriage?
Well, I'm talking about, because God is the author of marriage.
Yes.
He's the author of marriage. So to be able to successfully understand what marriage is, and to be able to go through the ups and downs of marriage, it's preferable, it's better to know who the author of marriage is.
That's right.
When you know who the author of marriage, you will know what his purpose is and what his intentions are for marriage, and try to reflect those. So when we form a relationship, in fact, God made us from a relational perspective to be, He said, I made them in my image to reflect who He is. So when we form a relationship, we reflect God. Husband and wife, the purpose of marriage is first to reflect Him. When we reflect God, what happens is we then treat one another the way God would treat us as His children. So the first purpose in my understanding of marriage is to try to reflect God. So marriage, the intentions of marriage, the purpose of marriage is to reflect God. That's a profound statement, I think. And not everybody will be able to buy into that. Because it's profound, and one has to be. I would say that Christians, people who go into marriage, knowing God helps you to successfully go through marriage and enjoy the benefits of marriage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's very deep and very intense. And okay, so you're married now. You've got this relationship with God. Is there an expectation on a couple once they're married? What does God expect? Is there a product from this union? Not necessarily children. That's a natural consequence if God blesses you with children. But is there and what's the product of that coming together? If God is bringing you together,
it's the oneness. God expects both of you to be one. Oneness, not so much in terms of both of you thinking the same thing, but both of you have the same. We're all different. Your husband, your wife is different. You're different. We all different, come from different backgrounds. So you wouldn't think the same thing, but you work in unity.
Right.
That's what it is. You work in unity.
So the oneness is unity.
Unity in purpose. Unity in outcome. Here's what together we plan for our marriage. The outcome we plan together for our marriage. So it's the oneness that God talks about that we need to have.
So it seems like you're saying there has to be an intentionality then, because you're talking about planning. So this isn't just, we love each other, we're going to make it work. This is okay, what are we doing? How are we doing this? How are we going to sustain this?
What is the point?
Yeah.
It has to be.
As you say, what's our core business?
It has to be.
Yeah.
You have to plan. You have to sit down and plan, because we're all different. And God, that is a uniqueness of marriage. Both of you are different, but yet similar. Different in terms of cultural background, different in terms of likes and dislikes, different in many ways. But both of you come together and you have a common goal. You have a common outcome. That one makes marriage interesting and important.
Yeah. And I think on that point as well, it's important that you have that common goal. You've decided together, because obviously there'll be people outside of your marriage and relatives and family who may have a different intention for your marriage. And I suppose it's important that you understand in your team what your team's about, because it's very easy, isn't it, to get swayed or to kind of get manipulated into kind of thinking your focus is elsewhere, when really, as you say, it's about God, it's about unity. That's our core business.
Yeah, well, in marriage also, God doesn't want you to disk or to ignore your extended families, your parents, grandparents. No, they're vital. In fact, culturally, culturally, in many cultures, extended families are vital. For the survival of marriages, in terms of helping to sustain. They serve, in many colleges, extended families serve to mentor married couples, mentor them in a way to stay together, to sustain. In fact, the word I've used, to save the marriage, put it that way. Yeah, so the purpose of extended family, first and foremost, is not to meld in the business of the couple or your child's business or your daughter's business, no, but to help them to maintain, to stay together, to raise your children. Is a way of transmitting the values from one family to the other. So it's a dynamic relationship, but it doesn't serve to break up or to cause problems. Rather to sustain, to keep it together.
I guess an obvious question for me is that how does any couple find out what the purpose is, or what the ministry is, or what their core business, what the purpose of their union is? How do they do that?
I'm a great believer in, if you are going to get married, you plan to get married, you think you found your life partner and you're going to get married. I think I'm a firm believer in having premarital counselling.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about 1 or 2 sessions, because I know my husband likes to do it over a year to 6 months if he can, and he's not happy, he's not contented if he doesn't do that, because it means you don't go through the whole process of your likes, dislikes, what your outcomes are, what your long-term goals are, children, finances, sickness, all those things that you cover in premarital counselling. So I'm a firm believer in premarital counselling, and find a really good counsellor who will delve into things that you might not even know about yourself, because it could bring out the best, or it could bring out the worst in you. And then you now will have to decide, oh my goodness, is that really what I think? But you may not have thought about it before, because you've never gone down this road before. So it's really important that for you to come together and decide where you're going, where you're going to end up, or at least to start, you have this counselling, and a really good counsellor.
So when's a good time to do this counselling? Because is it after you book the venue for the hall, or after you bought the wedding dress and all the invitations have been sent out? When's a good time?
When's a good time, Pastor? What would you say?
Well,
what's your experience? You've had loads of experience, haven't you?
Well, some come to me and marriage has been prepared in 3 months. Plan to get married in 3 months. And when they come to me, all of the plans are in place. Hall is booked, invitations are sent out, and then they come to me to give them some
blessing.
Pronounce them blessings, premarital counseling. And then when we go into, I don't normally do it, but sometimes you exercise some grace, but then when you go into it and begin to unravel the differences, preferences, goals, expectations, they are miles apart.
That's the thing, isn't it?
Miles apart.
Miles apart.
So, we didn't think about it, but hopefully it will work after marriage. It doesn't happen like that. It doesn't work after marriage. It will not come together after marriage. It will, in fact, it could get worse.
Yeah.
Wow.
So some come to me 3 months, some come to me 6 months, some come to me within a year. But we say to them, look, the minimum I can do is 6 months.
Okay.
And is that once a week or once a month?
We say to them, look, if you're going to get married, make sure you give them 6 months for premarital counseling. And we culture it, or we fix it based on the schedule. Sometimes twice a month, or once a week, or twice every 2 months, depending on the availability. But we strive to finish 8 sessions.
Okay.
We go through 8 sessions.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do a little bit more. And after the marriage, we continue to do counseling as well.
Okay, so it doesn't end, or you're married now. If you go off and be happy, you continue working with the couple.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. We had marriage counseling, didn't we, Ruth?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we had with one of our local Adventist pastors, Pastor Colin Stewart, and that was quite a painful experience for me, because it's like having to see yourself for who you really are.
That's right.
But it was worth it, I think. It was absolutely
It's a good
worth
thing.
it.
Oh, yeah.
And if we can share, maybe we'll expand on it in later shows. But what was one of the things, Ruth, if you remember, that you shared with us? What?
One of the things he was saying, you're firm.
Yeah.
And when you're coming together, you are your own culture.
Yes.
So yes, you've got other things and traditions and mindsets, but when you've come together now, you have to create your own culture for your household.
That's right.
And we were
That's
okay,
right.
yeah.
We'll talk about this later.
Yeah.
This creating of
interesting.
your own family culture. Oh my
Yes,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Lord. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
It's a good thing.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. Because there are things within my culture. I mean, we'll talk about my culture when we maybe in later shows. But there are things within my culture that are good that we can take on. So it's almost like having this array of things from Ruth's culture and from my culture. Then we cherry pick. Okay, in our family, we like that about culture. We'll do that,
Yeah.
and then we form our own little universe in our own homes.
Yeah.
But it has its own challenges too.
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
Because
Yes.
you are what you are.
Yes, and
You know.
and what I am is very difficult to let go of.
Well, the good
Yeah.
thing is you are aware of it.
Yes.
That's the first
Right.
step in the right
Right.
direction. You are aware of it. The fact that you're aware of it, that's enough. Then you begin to work on it.
To work on it, yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so we're back and we're looking at just briefly relatives, responsibilities. So, big question: who sits in the front seat, your mum or your wife?
Oh, is that, you mean the car?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah.
Ooh. I think for me, respectfully, I say my mum.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Just pure out of respect.
Right.
And I think I've done that in the past, haven't I?
That's right.
Yeah, I've done that in the past. Yeah. But that's to do with respect and
Right.
probably, I'm not going to say culture, I'm going to say respect.
Okay.
But that respect comes from a certain place.
Yeah, which is cultural, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, how about you, Pastor Lawrence?
My mother passed away before I owned a car. So
Okay.
I don't know.
That's just a cop out.
But I never thought about it. Who sits in the front seat? But Barbara always gives the front seat to people when we're driving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, sit there, sit in the front. She sits in the back.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how we roll.
Yeah.
That's how we roll.
And I'm sure we'll have some feedback because sometimes you see on comedy sketches on TV, but sometimes it's a reflection of some topics and issues that people have. What does it say? Because for you it's respect. The mother sits at the front. Maybe it's not even a discussed thing until it happens, and then you realise, wait a minute, who's sitting where and why and how, and what does it mean, or does it not even mean anything? Are you kind of beyond that? So I suppose it's just kind of a little intro into sometimes the simple things that actually could have a bigger impact if not maybe discussed or even just thought about.
I mean, we're not millennials, but you're millennials. I mean, I said that word right?
Yeah.
Millennial.
Millennials.
Yes.
Okay.
No, you got it.
I got it. I wonder what they would say, actually. The younger generation, what would they do? So we want to hear from them, don't we?
Yes,
Oh, please.
we do.
Absolutely.
Because I'm coming from an older generation where I'm talking about respect. I'm not saying that the millennials are disrespectful, not at all. But I'm just thinking, what would be their thought on this?
Yeah.
Love to
I'll
hear.
tell you what my thoughts are.
Oh, go on.
If my mum is able and can sit in the back seat.
She sits in the back.
Then she sits in the back
There
seat.
you go.
However, if she has a physical condition and can't make it and needs probably more space or more maneuvering, then she sits in the front seat.
Interesting.
Then as soon as the business is done, my wife comes back in the front seat.
Okay.
I mean, I had an incident when I was dating, and I had my girlfriend. I went to pick up. I had one of my siblings in the car, and I went to pick up my girlfriend then to take her to church, and my sibling didn't move from the front seat. So I had to say, you need to move. That didn't go down too well. But and even my girlfriend then was my then girlfriend was like, that's so uncomfortable. I said, no, you're my girlfriend. This is my car. This is my sibling. They can sit in the back of the car. They can sit in the front of the car when you're not there. So I thought, well, it was important for her just to see just how much she meant to me.
Wow.
And my sister, anyway, had no choice but to love me. It's not like, well, I'm going to dump you now. 'Cause you put me in the car. Whereas the girl could think, well, actually, you put your sister before me, so that was
that's very
considered.
sweet. Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
That's something that I did. I mean, for us now, it's not a big deal for
No.
us, is it, Ruth? Yeah.
No, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess there's greater things. What part of it would you expect, Barbara, your family to play in your marriage? Do they have a role, like your siblings, your mom? Do they have a role at all?
No, none
Okay.
whatsoever. They might have an opinion.
Okay.
They might have an opinion, but they don't have a role at all.
Right.
Okay.
And I will listen to their opinions, and I might get annoyed at their opinions. I might take their opinions on board. I might not take their opinions on board,
Right.
but they don't have a role at all
Right.
in my family affairs. And saying that, though, they have tried in the past,
Wow.
very much so in the past, but I've sort of,
Yeah.
put them to the side, really.
And is that a decision that you kind of made as a firm?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know Pastor Lawrence talked about families are there to help keep families together, mentors, that sort of thing. But
They
sometimes
should.
they should be, but sometimes they can be those that try and separate you.
That's right.
And you know what? It doesn't have to be in your face separation. It could be subtle things,
Absolutely.
very subtle. Oh, she didn't put the baby in the car properly. The baby could have fell out of the car seat. Well, actually, your mum, you're not going to let your baby fall out of the car seat, are you? Little digs that just start digging, and then your husband, if he gets annoyed with you, he starts thinking about, or your wife, start thinking about, oh, yeah, my mum said that,
Right.
yeah, my auntie said that, and I'm starting to believe that. I'm starting
Yeah.
to look at that.
Yeah.
So, no, there's no place for family in your relationship.
Okay.
No meddling at all.
Okay. Okay.
And I even would go as far as to say that if you needed advice, I wouldn't go to family.
Right.
Wow, that's deep.
And I think we'll get a lot of information about that, people calling in or writing in about that.
I don't think I would go to family.
Yeah.
Why would you not go to family? Surely they know you well.
Yeah, but the biasness of it.
Okay.
Okay.
If you go to someone neutral, then you know that they're going to be unbiased.
Right. Yeah.
So would you say then, Pastor Lawrence, from your counselling experience, is it if there's an issue between a couple, is it better to run to mom and dad, or is it better to go to a professional person?
Well, let me begin with reference to myself.
Okay.
Now, my parents have passed long, many years ago, but my sisters have taken the place of my parents. So they're the ones who give advice and and tips on what to do and what not to do. But for them, your wife is always right.
Wow.
That's the stance they take. They would never tell you that you're right. If I go to them, they'll never tell me you're right. They always that's how they
I
process
I
things.
feel like going across and giving you a hug, man.
They say to you, your wife is always right.
Wow.
You may have a different idea or different opinion, but they always say to you, your wife is right. Because for them, their role is to make sure your relationship is sustained, lasts. That is perspective from which to come. So they always say to you, your wife is right. They will say to you, your wife is right. I don't always agree with that, but I take it on board. Now, from a professional perspective, people who come to me, we encourage couples to solve the problems themselves.
Okay.
To solve the problems themselves. If they are struggling, we say to them, seek professional help. Some will say, look, I spoke to my mom to hear what my mom would say. It's not a wise thing to do. But again, sometimes you still listen to your parents to hear what they have to say, but it doesn't mean you're going to do what the parents say. But I always say to couples, get some professional help. Get professional help. Yeah. If you want to go to your parents, then make sure your husband knows about it. Make sure you have some agreement, but make sure you get some professional help. Go to professional people. Should you tell people to go to your mom or to your dad? You have to be careful what you say to people. You have to be very careful when you give advice to people. Be careful who you signpost them to as well, because it can cause a lot of problems. I would say to people, look, hear what your parents have to say. If you have to tell them, you'll have to tell them. But if you want to get a perspective, their opinion, but make sure that you set boundaries to make sure they don't interfere and cause problems.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I mean, there's loads more. We're just right on the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be loads more. So please make sure that you do email us at studio@adventistradio.london or text us at 82228, write hope and then a space and then your message. Give us your scenarios, give us your tips, your tricks, your solutions, just to help us, solidify our relationships and just have positive experiences with these topics.
And we're back. Well, the next topic is one that is that can possibly make or break a marriage. We're going to look at finances, and I'm just going to throw the biggie out there to either one of you: joint bank account or separate bank account.
Well, I would say what works for the family. I would say what works for both of you. If joint account works for both of you, you go for it. If it doesn't work for you, find what works for you, what makes sense, what will help you to be accountable to each other. That's what I would say to couples, and then they choose what works for them. I also say to them, find somebody who is careful with money, who is not a spender, to be in charge.
Wow.
But both of you should decide who that person is. But do not put a spender in charge of your finance. Right. Somebody who will exercise restraint, control, and understand what he or she is doing should be in charge. But what works for your family is what I would say you should go with.
Yeah, that's really good, actually. That's quite a clever answer, because I'm a spender. I'm going to put it out there. I'm a spender. And so my husband is in charge of all the big bills.
Okay.
To make sure that at the end, when they come up, and I haven't got enough money in my bank account, we'll be getting letters left, right and centre saying that you don't have enough money to pay this, that and the other. Yeah. So he's in charge of all the big bills that have to be paid, i.e. the mortgage, etc. And the mortgage is the big one if you have a mortgage, or the rent, whatever it is, mortgage or rent. And it's true, it's what works, because I can guarantee you that I'd have the money to pay the mortgage, but I might spend some of it and not think about it. So he's right, what works for you. And he's very careful with money, and I'm a spender. I am a spender. So I think that's a good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a very good answer.
It is an excellent answer. But whose money is it? Or when the money comes into the family, how is that managed? We'll probably look at it in depth, like I said, in future. But whose money is it? Is it the family's money? Or, for example, my salary is paid into my bank account, and Ruth's salary is paid into her bank account, and we decided to have a joint account to run the house, because that's what worked for us, and it's working so far. It's working.
So when you say to run the house, is that all bills, shopping, everything? So you decide, you put X amount in each, and then what's left in your personal is yours.
Yes, we have no rules money.
Oh, so that's the no rules money.
If there's any left.
I like that. Yeah. I like that.
So that's what we decided on. We let's say, for an argument's sake, we put 2,000 each into the joint family account.
Yeah.
This is just for we wish we could.
We wish.
But for argument's sake. So if you say we have 400 or 500 pounds left, then we can say you save some of that, but this is no rules money. If you're a spender like I am, I see something nice on sale, then I can buy it out of the no rules money. Yeah.
Okay. But that's what works for them.
Yes,
for
what
other
works
couples,
for us.
That may not work for them.
Yeah.
Precisely.
So you have to find what works for you.
That's it. Absolutely.
See, so when the money comes in, some people will make the unhealthy statement and say, "It's my money."
Right.
That's not healthy.
This was a learning point for us, wasn't it, at the beginning?
So it's my money because I work for it. It's my money. I
say that sometimes.
Well, what I'm saying is,
it's my money. I can do what I want with it.
What I'm saying is, it's not a healthy statement to make.
Yeah.
It may be true. It is your money, but it's not healthy.
Correct.
And
it doesn't help relationships.
And if we can be honest, Ruth, it was a point of contention. Yeah. We didn't arrive at this joint account thing. It was painful because we married later, in our late 30s and 40s for me, and it was like 40s, early 40s for me. It was like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? And you're accustomed to doing whatever you want, whenever you want, going on, and suddenly now you're accountable to somebody else. So that was painful.
And we're quite different. Well, for me, I'm a more of a delayed gratification kind of person. I'll visit those shoes in that shop and visit them until they are on sale, and maybe on sale in the sale. You know, I'm that delayed gratification person. So I'm a saver. I want to know I put this money away. So when something does come up,
you got it.
Then I dip into my little savings. But
I'm totally conscious that I could die at any point.
So you want to have a good time.
So I want to have a pleasant time while alive. Yeah, but I have learned also to visit.
Sounds like me.
to visit clothes in the shop and to wait for the sale. Right. I don't think we ever pay full price for anything. No. I visit clothes, and as long as there's my size, I'll keep going back and checking. And so that's one of the things I've learned from Ruth. But one of the things that multicultural couples might have to encounter is maybe having to support family. What are your views about that, supporting family financially?
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, I subscribe to that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, the Bible says you leave and cleave.
Yeah.
You're not only leaving and cleaving, but you also, for my culture, there are people who rely on me for certain things.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's I find it as a Christian responsibility to assist in whichever way I can.
Okay.
Because for them, that's all they have. That's all the hope. You become the only hope they have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of talking about it and helping out. But it's something that I respond to every month.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. So do you give out of your abundance, or if you have to choose, your household or your family who are starving wherever they are, your immediate household, where's the balance?
Well, priority is to my family.
Okay, your immediate family.
Immediate family, but sometimes I will, to be honest with you, I will deprive myself and look at their need as even more important than mine. Sometimes it happens.
Yourself personally as an individual, yourself as a family.
Well, sometimes I won't say anything to Barbara. I will help.
Wow. So
because I think it's because Brian. It's because I lived there and I know.
Yes.
I know the pain. I know the suffering. I know the hardship. That when people talk to you and you see the situation, They are suffering. They're in the dire straits.
Mm-hmm.
They want help. And wherever you give them, they are very much appreciative of it. And so I do what I can to help out for medical. Sometimes it's medical. Sometimes it's food for the children. Sometimes it's rent.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just paying a bill. Some debt they're owing. And
do you want to come in at this point, Barbara?
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I'm a spender. I am a spendthrift. I do spend money, and sometimes money that I don't have, I spend. And I will give anybody anything.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that at all. So yeah, I subscribe to that, but I do think that your immediate family always comes first.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you have children in the household. It's really important that you think about what's under your nose in your house. And then what you can do, you can help those as you see fit. I definitely agree to that.
Yeah.
And, at the end of the day, we could be in that position one day. God forbid that we could be in that position one day that we might have to ask for support and help from our family. Not that we've ever done that in our lives as a married couple. But, you never know. You never know what's going to come your way.
And I think that also comes back to the purpose of your marriage as well.
Yeah.
Again, it might be linked to your relative and supporting and showing them God and showing them Christ through how you are with them and things. But what about your your past financial affairs? Do you think that could be something that could affect marriages, people's past financial situations?
Absolutely.
Should you marry somebody who's broke?
Here's an experience I had. This couple who got married, and the lady didn't tell her husband to be that she had this £25,000 debt, credit card debt. She didn't tell him. They came to the marriage counseling, they done it, they got prepared for the marriage. Marriage happened. 6 months down the line, he got to know that his wife had this huge debt that he didn't know about. He came to see me. He was furious. He was angry. Almost broke the relationship.
Okay.
But by the grace of God, well, not by the grace of God, they were able to work together, and she gradually crawled out of the debt. She was able to pay it off, but after a long period of time. But now they are okay now.
You said yes and no to marrying somebody in financial dire straits.
Well, the fact that somebody is broke doesn't mean that you can't marry them.
Hallelujah.
If one person is working, that's good enough. But yes, that's the reason why you shouldn't marry somebody who is broke. Now, if there's debts, bills, and so on, you have to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think having everything out
So
there
be on the table, you talk about it and see what happens. But I always like to allow the couples to talk about their situation and how best they can navigate through it, rather than telling them what to do.
Okay. Yeah. So you lead people to find their own solution.
Yeah, there to guide them, give them pros and cons, but allow them to come up with their own solutions.
Right. Brilliant.
Okay. These have been today. We've just looked at the purpose of marriage. We've looked at relatives, and we've looked at finances. It's amazing how time flies when you're having fun. So we're going to, Ruth, we're going to end the show on this note today. Just thank you to our guest, Pastor Augustus Lawrence, and his wife, Barbara Lawrence. And we just want to thank you for taking part. It's been great having you in the show.
And we're going to get ready for our next show, so make sure you tune in. We're going to again be looking at a few topics that we're going to delve into later on in the series. So please email us at studio@adventistradio.london or text us at 82228. Write hope and then a space and then your message. We would love to hear from you. It's been a lovely first show. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
us. Thank you.
Yes, and do remember, this is where family matters on Adventist Radio London.